Hello and welcome to First and Last Podcast. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Sitara, your hosts for an exciting journey into the world of real estate rentals. Each episode, we dive into everything you need to know about renting, offering top tips for both renters and landlords. We also have amazing conversations with special guests from all aspects of the rental world, keeping you informed and entertained.
So join us for a practical and engaging journey into residential leasing. Gain valuable insights, expert advice, lots of laughs as we share our experiences and funny stories. Welcome to First and Last Podcast, where renting becomes a breeze. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us on an episode of Lease and Laugh, a Q&A session where Sitara and I will be asking each other questions about the real world behind renting. The stories we've come across as both landlords and tenants from the perspective of realtors and working in property management, and not to mention the interactions with the many, many tenants we've been privileged to, and maybe not so privileged to meet in the world of renting. It's filled with jaw-dropping and downright crazy tales. It's like we could write a whole book on all the stories that we've had together, Sitara. So I'm super excited to get started and see what questions you have for me.
Yeah, so this episode, we're kind of really going off the script and we just have a bunch of questions for each other. And it just to kind of share some really crazy, funny experiences that we've had. And my first question, Michelle, is do you have any stories of a tenant kind of going rogue off the charts?
Off the charts, like
Let it rip.
just
What has
batty.
happened? What has happened?
I have to jog my memory, but there's been quite a few that it's all blurring together now. But one that kind of stands out was a few years ago, very standard, application with this prospective tenant. I met them, showed them a really nicely renovated studio, beautifully renovated. It was a brand new reno. Now, these studios, they're not that big. They're about 150 square feet, but beautifully done. Really nice European finishes, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
This individual was great. Everything was fine. The showing went well. Nothing out of the ordinary. Didn't think anything strange with this individual. I asked for, credentials. They provided everything in a timely manner. Everything checked out, and it was a quick move in. So I was like, sweet, rent the unit. It's great. Good person. He's happy. A couple months later, this individual, I'm not sure what was going on, but apparently he wasn't as mentally stable as I thought. Mm-hmm. And these are things that you can't predict. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't know just by meeting someone at 30 minutes on a showing. They could be amazing, but you really don't know what people are going through. Nonetheless, this individual seemed to be a little bit paranoid and was accusing me of deactivating his fob into the building because he couldn't get in. And then that led to, now keep in mind, he was drinking pretty heavy in the day when this all happened. And this individual caused a huge scene in the lobby of a property that had over 500 units, broke his unit door. And these are fire rated doors, really hard to break a metal door, but he had managed somehow with his strength to break the door, smash the unit, ripped it off. He ripped the vanity off the wall in the bathroom, broke the glass top stove, cupboards were ripped down, and called me to tell me he did all this stuff. I'm like, okay. I'm like,
oh my God.
And he said that he would fix it. And I said, well, a lot of these components are actually shipped here from Europe and you can't find them here. But okay. So long story short, eventually this individual ended up getting evicted. They lost their job too because of their I guess, mental instability. So anyways, nightmare story. Yes, it's unfortunate, but these things do happen. But it was pretty scary. That's a tenant gone rogue for sure.
That is crazy. That is very, I feel like it's kind of like those, and instead of paying for where you go to those rooms and you break things.
That's a thing.
Yeah, like they break plates and like you take a sledgehammer.
I feel like I've heard it. Yeah.
Well, he just like kind of did it to his own unit instead and was like, okay, well.
It's only like, $50,000 reno, but that's okay. Nonetheless,
That is
yeah, so that's my crazy
crazy.
story. I'm sure I have crazier ones. That's one that comes to mind, but I have a question for you, Sitara,
Okay.
because I know you've been in the industry a very long time as well, and different facets of property management. So that
Mhm.
being said, what is your most stressful situation you've ever encountered working in multifamily?
Wow. Most stressful, and I feel like there's, like, so many that have topped that award
Right?
of the most stressful situation. Um, but it has to be, like, so there's one time, so there's been so many, like, my experiences kinda, like, went all over. So, like, I was in facilities, and then I was in, handling the service center, and then I became in marketing. But when I was handling, facilities, there was a tenant that kept complaining, and then he said that someone had came into his unit and stole his shoes, and I was just like, "Who would come into your unit to steal your shoes?" So I remember
Right.
meeting him on the property, and then I was like, "Okay," and then I forgot, I don't know, I just was in his unit, I guess, and he showed me the shoes, but the shoes are like Jordans, like limited
Like
edition Jordans,
expensive.
expensive shoes. I'm thinking like someone just like stole his Birkenstocks off like those like
His
by
flip
his front
flops or
door. Yeah,
something.
and I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting when he said shoes, 8
Like
boxes of limited edition
high
sneakers,
end.
high end. He's a
Yeah.
sneakerhead. So I was like, okay, it went through the whole process. Okay, did you file a police report, blah, blah, blah. And then like a couple days later I get another complaint, and this girl was like, "Oh, one of your maintenance tech was stealing stuff from my unit." And I was like, "Okay, none of our guys would ever. Also, how dumb of you to like do it when the
Yeah.
person was home." So a guy was, so she came home and she
Hmm.
found a guy in her unit, and he was going through some stuff, and she was just like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in maintenance, I'm just fixing some stuff." But like he was in her room going through things, and she's just kind of like, "That's weird." um he wasn't in maintenance, actually, just a guy that got caught in her unit,
Oh,
middle of stealing her stuff pretty much, and she was just
oh my.
lucky that she came in and he didn't do anything, he just left. So
Yeah, yeah.
after now
And
when
then he said he was maintenance?
yeah, he's like
So he
maintenance.
lied?
Yeah, so he lied. So
Oh,
like
I
we're
see.
then I'm like, "Okay, who is this guy? How does he have keys? What is
Yeah.
going on? How is he getting the units? Cannot be one of our
Got
guys.
it.
100% it's not them." I mean, we also
Right.
check, like we also know it's not our
Yeah,
guys, but there's way for us to check, right?
of
And
course.
then lo and behold, um, the police get involved at this point because now we're getting
Mm,
multiple police reports. So I have to then get all the data, all the recordings of all the cameras to the police.
right.
And funny enough, that property is actually 3 buildings. So it's three
Okay.
separate buildings in one location. So I had to send them all the cameras for in the surrounding areas. And lo and behold, they find out who the guy is. And the
Yeah,
only
and?
reason they found out who the guy was a tenant in one of the buildings, because
Oh,
he stopped stealing from the building, his building. Because if he was stealing just from his own building, we would never know because you don't see him
yeah,
leaving, but you see him leave and hit the building beside him, and then he comes
got
back.
it.
He's coming
Yeah.
back with a duffel bag. So the police, for some reason, kept calling me superintendent. He's like, you know, he was just like, he's like, "We're gonna come arrest him on this day. If you tell him, I will arrest you." He looked at me, he's like, "I will arrest you if you tell him." And I'm like, oh, what? I was like,
Wow, that's
I was
aggressive.
shook. I was shook. I'm like,
You're trying to get him caught, and
yeah, okay, but
the police is
but
coming at
our,
you like
our
that.
our listeners don't know this. I lived at that building.
Oh
Okay,
my
at
god.
that time, I lived
Yeah,
and rented
that's
at that
scary.
building. Okay, guys. So I still remember the day that the guy was supposed to be arrested. I just legit stood in my front door and like peered out
Oh,
of my window, like the little
mm.
peephole, because he was actually my front. Like I could see his unit from my
Oh,
peephole
like across the way?
across the way, and
Yeah.
I just stood there. I'm like, not even gonna. I, what if I bump into him? What if I throw out the garbage and I bump into him? And I'm like, Like, my
My
face
God.
gives it away, you're getting arrested today. Like, I don't know. I was so scared. So I just sat there and waited for
So you
him to
just
get
kept all the garbage piling up in your
yeah.
unit
I just, like,
until he
sat
got
there
arrested.
with the garbage in my hand, waited for him to get arrested, messaged work. I'm like, "I'm gonna be late today because someone's getting arrested." The police come and they, like it was, like, this whole, like pretty much like from the movies, like, so a bunch of guys
Like
and they come
SWAT team and everything?
it wasn't SWAT team, but there's a lot of cops. There's, like, 6, 7 cops
Oh my
come in
God.
from each entrance. They go to his door, they knock the door down, and you just hear this yelling, "Please, please." And then I'm just, like, in my little peephole, like, watching. He gets arrested, I wait, like, 20 minutes, and then I leave. But I find
Yeah.
out that pretty much, there has been a string of burglaries in that building for years. So he
Mhm,
has
mhm.
been targeting that building, not just those times, but previously the
Right.
years before, and they finally caught him. And that was probably the one time in my life I was just like, when the police said that to me, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I might just say something. I might just be like, you're gonna get arrested. So I was like, so scared
Yeah,
that if I
yeah.
like blurted it out, you would might have been like, gotten an email from the company and been like, Sitara's been arrested, guys. Like,
For infiltrating the takedown.
notice, employee notice. Sitara
Effective
arrested.
immediately.
Arrested. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that sounds pretty stressful though. Like,
and I actually found out that he would target units that had didn't have dogs. So that guy with the sneaker had actually
mm,
dog just left. Like he went to his like girlfriend's or something. So for that short time, he didn't have his dog. So, and I was lucky;
right.
I had a dog at that time, so he wasn't gonna break into my unit. But really, that time I was like, never had to deal with the police at work like that
Sure.
intimately. Like usually, police come, I give a statement, or we give them like the recordings or whatever. Never had to like really go to the police station. He had me sit
Yeah.
there in front of him in his
Oh my.
office. Girl, I was
Oh,
like
really?
I was like,
I didn't know you went to the
"Yeah,"
police
I was
station. Oh
yo,
my
I'm getting
goodness.
arrested
I've
today.
never even done that.
They're gonna arrest
Huh.
me for something. I don't know what. I have something in my history. I don't know.
That is hilarious. You
I
must
think
be on a lot of police reports in
yeah,
Toronto.
and I feel like I just feel like, um,
That's why you went to Hong Kong, you escaped.
I ran away, but honestly, I think
Like,
that was something that if you've never
yeah,
experienced before, and, like, I was
yeah,
young and I was living at that property, like, it was really, like it happened so quick and there's so many moving parts that I was, like, really stressed out, and once he finally got arrested, I was like and the guy was like, "Thanks for being such a great
yeah.
superintendent," and I was like, "I'm not a superintendent, but thanks."
The facilities
Yeah.
manager.
He's like, "Thanks for being such a great super," and I'm like,
Oh,
it just happened that I work here and I live in the building. That
yeah,
was pretty much it.
yeah. That's
Crazy.
hilarious, though. Yeah,
But
super stressful dealing with cops for sure.
honestly, but
Yeah.
Michelle, okay. My
Yes.
question for you is any funny stories on maybe a way that a tenant might have tried to pay for
Oh,
a unit?
tried to pay for a unit. Yes. Couple of different ones, but one that comes to mind, I was managing a property in downtown Toronto, sort of in the Yonge and Bloor, Church and Wellesley kind of area. Um, and I had shown a unit to a prospective tenant, and everything was fine, more or less. And I was explaining the process. Oh, this is what we require, and this is what we'll need. And step one is the deposit check, first and last. Okay. And this individual's like, oh, I don't have a bank account. I don't believe in the banks and the government. And do you see these gold chains that I have and my gold rings? He has all these like heavy, gaudy gold rings and jewelry and heavy chains. And I'll pay you my first and last with my gold chain. He's taking the chain off his neck. He's like, this is $50,000. And I said, I don't want your jewelry, sir. I don't need it. I just need a bank draft. Forget the jewelry. And anyways, I just thought that was pretty funny to try and barter with me
Yeah.
for a rent with jewelry. So short story, but yeah, those are some of the crazy things I've encountered for sure.
So guys, don't try to pay Michelle with your jewelry. She doesn't
No,
want it. She wants
I don't want
cash.
your
I mean,
jewelry.
no
Yeah.
cash,
No,
bank
I don't want
transfer.
cash either.
Just put it right into
Well,
a bank
maybe no.
account.
Don't pay in jewelry and don't pay in cash. Okay. Don't pay with your pets, your children, nothing. Bank draft. Let me see here. I have a question for you, Sitara.
Hmm.
Another crazy question. What is the most insane situation you've encountered on a prop?
Um, okay, so one that comes to mind is, so sometimes, like people exaggerate, like where they're like, oh, the door, this is happening, this is gonna happen, like it's gonna, the smoke, something's on fire, like, pretty much like, but it's like next thing you
Yeah.
know, it's like someone's doing barbecue down the street and they're freaking out. So remember one property where the door kept getting left open in the front. And
Hmm.
I remember kept getting complaints on it. Doors being left open, doors being left open. And then they're like, people are sneaking in, into the laundry room and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, let me take a look. So I remember going and looking at the recordings, and all you see is people were like almost camped out in the laundry room smoking crack. Like
No, you saw
people
them smoking crack. I don't
they
even know
were
what that looks like.
they were just like, like
How do
in the
you know?
corner, like they're just like like this,
Oh my God.
and then the problem was like these people were actually coming in.
Hmm.
Either they're coming in through like slipping in through behind people, or they're coming in,
Yeah.
doors open, and they're camping. Like they're almost like they were sleeping in the laundry room all day because they
Crazy.
smoked, and then they would just pass out
Oh, they pass out.
in the
Yeah.
laundry room. And I was just
Oh
like,
my God. It's a
oh
nice
my god,
warm place though.
it is, and it smells
It smells
nice.
like laundry
Yeah.
detergent.
And then I was just like, oh my god, what am I gonna do to
Hmm.
deter people from coming in and doing that? And I was just like, I was really
Yeah.
like, oh my god, great. So this is happening. Now people are
Oh,
smoking crack in the building.
oh
So it's
my
like,
God.
then it's like, okay,
And
they're not exaggerating.
I'm sure residents or tenants saw or
No,
complained, or
so
like, how did
actually,
you find out?
the funny thing was, it was because they kept complaining that the door is being left open. They're worried.
Mm,
I don't remember
mhm,
it being that someone saw them, because in the
mhm.
video, no one comes to the laundry room that day. It's just those two
Interesting.
people. So they were just complaining because they're like, "Oh, people are gonna come in. People are gonna come in. You guys keep leaving the doors open. This person, whatever." And
Yeah,
but it's actually true. But I didn't say them like, "Hey, I actually did see crackheads coming in." But it was like it was happening. So
yeah,
I remember having to like issue notice saying that like the doors need to be closed. If they're not closed, blah blah blah. So we
yeah.
were very, excuse me, diligent when it came to them making sure the doors are closed. But no one
Mm,
actually saw them.
mhm, mhm.
It was me who then saw it on the video, and I was like, "Hey, it's
Oh my
becoming a problem.
goodness.
Before this becomes like a habitual problem where they constantly keep
Right.
sneaking in, we have to solve it."
Yeah,
So luckily, we did.
yeah. Because next thing you know, they invite their buddies over,
Yeah, and it
and
becomes
now
our
you've
every
got like,
Friday.
this is the spot. Check out, come to my laundry room, and like, let's hit a, I don't know what the term is, but let's smoke a pipe. I don't know, but like, yeah. So you're trying to like avoid that congregation of people. Yeah, no, that's
Exactly.
really a crazy situation for sure.
Um,
I wouldn't want to have to deal with that, but it
yeah, I
happens.
was just lucky that no one actually saw them, but I knew it was happening. So I was like, okay, now we have to really like
Right.
increase
Yeah,
security. And we did like, we had extra security coming to the property. But I still remember being like,
absolutely.
it was just kind of like people complaining. But then I'm like, oh my God, who are those
Yeah, it's
people in the
actually
laundry room?
happening.
And they're just
Yeah.
knocked out on the floor. And
My
then I'm
gosh.
reviewing and I just see them, they're like smoking. And I was just like, okay, great.
Ugh, so scary.
But so goes into my question for you, Michelle. Then, anytime
Mm.
is there any time that you've actually felt unsafe?
Oh my gosh, so many times. And going
You can
along with what
laugh,
you or
but
your story, unsafe, and that's side note, this is the reason why in condos or apartment buildings they say do not open the door for anybody unless you know them or they have their own fob or key. Like, you shouldn't be letting random people in because it is a safety issue.
Yes,
Never
it
mind
is.
me, who works for, in real estate, works for a company, property. As a resident, it's unsafe, right?
Yeah.
You never know. You get break-ins, you get people doing crazy stuff in your laundry room, right? So you just want to
Mhm.
avoid that. So asking me when have I felt unsafe, there's a million times. But I can't even think of one thing. But in general, like when I'm on showings, I would say that's the most unsafe time because there are times where in my job or working for multifamily and you're doing showings, there's not always a security guard
Mhm.
or someone
Mhm.
on site.
Yeah.
I may be working till 8, 9 o'clock at night on showings. It's winter here in Toronto. It's dark. Sun goes down at like 5 o'clock. And yeah, it could be many, many unsafe situations. Toronto, like New York, it doesn't matter where you are. There are safe areas and there's unsafe areas, but stuff can happen anytime, anywhere. That being said, I always, if I felt unsure about an individual, some safety tips that I would offer to landlords or anyone who's acting as a leasing agent or doing showings in general. First of all, tell a friend, tell a family member where you are and what you're doing. I would highly recommend that. Number two, if you're showing a unit and you're not quite comfortable, open the door and just stay in the hallway
Mhm.
between the unit and the hallway or between outside and the unit, for example, and just say, hey, feel free. Any questions? I'll meet
Yeah.
you at the front. And that way you're not closing the door behind you and walking around with them.
Yeah.
Another example of a safety tip would be maybe you're taking the stairs up in a
Mhm.
stairwell or back staircase or something like that. And I hate to say it, but sometimes when women or men, if you get attacked, they're going to attack you from behind, right?
Mhm.
So a safety tip for me would be after you. You go first
Mhm.
and always follow from behind. And even if they insist, just say, no, after you, I insist. Just hold
Just
your
make it
ground and just,
awkward.
you
No,
go.
you. Or
No,
you.
after you. I'm not moving until you go. But yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. Like some people are unpredictable.
Yeah.
You know, you trust your gut and then always err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
I've just been in so many encounters that all of the unsafe stories just blur in my mind now because I know how to like prevent it. We'll just say you can never fully
Yeah.
prevent it, but
Yeah.
you try your best, right? So yeah, that is feeling unsafe. Sitara, is there any time you felt like, we always get into these tricky situations, right? Is there ever a
Right.
situation that you've been in where you're like, I don't know if I can get out of this? Like
I feel like there's
some
so many
disaster thing,
times where it's like just like one thing after another, and you're just kind of standing there or you're just on the phone, you're just like,
like an overwhelm.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
like just like your brain's not computing anywhere. You're like, this is
Yeah.
it. My brain's gonna explode. Um,
Yeah.
I think one situation that comes to mind was we just recently acquired a property, and we do a lot of like meetings where you have a chance to meet with tenants or um and I remember a lot of these like we bring treats like tea, coffee, and donuts, right? Tim
Right.
Hortons,
It's
right?
like a tenant meet and greet or something,
Yeah, tenant
right?
meet and greet, and you have like snacks or whatever there. We would
Okay.
do these also for like any updates and kind of so it's either when you get the property or when you're doing updating or you have any concerns. So this
Hmm.
one particular was just a meet and greet. So I remember the lobby was so hot, and I was just like, oh,
Uh,
it's too hot. There's no AC in the lobby, so I was like, okay, let's do it by this front door. Excuse me. Let's do it by this. Like,
right.
it was like it had like front entrance. It wasn't like on the side of the street or anything, but I was like, let's do it out here. At
Yeah.
least it's a little windy. And I set up the coffee and everything. And people are coming out and they're like, it's so hot. Why didn't you do it in the lobby? And I was like, well, there's no AC in the lobby, so I did outside. And then I'm like, did you like any coffee? Like, it's hot coffee. It's 30 degrees. Why did you do coffee? Why didn't you do something cold? And I was like, oh my God, okay.
You didn't have water?
I did, but it wasn't cold.
Like it was room temperature
Yeah.
water? Oh,
Yeah, so
Sitara.
it was warm because it got warm and it was middle of like it wasn't middle of
Yeah.
summer, but it was like warmer weather. So like
Mm.
people are complaining. So people are complaining that it was in the lobby. People were complaining that
Mm.
I bought hot drinks. I mean coffee. I mean I couldn't bring 60
Standard.
cups of iced coffees. It was just like that Tim Hortons pour
Yeah.
individual, right?
Yeah. Pour it yourself.
And then they started
Mhm.
complaining about the donuts. And so I'm
What's
just
wrong with the
standing.
donuts now?
I don't know. And they were like, "Couldn't you do something healthier?" And I was just like, at this point, I
Ugh,
was like, I don't know what you I don't know.
can't win. Can't
And
win.
then the meeting goes on, and then this one person's like, "The front light hasn't been fixed for over a year. When will you fix it?" And I'm standing there, I'm like, "We just purchased the property yesterday. Like,
Oh, this is like you just acquired the property,
just
you're
acquired the
brand new
property,
landlords, and they're
brand
freaking out
new."
over what the previous landlord did not do. Yeah, very
Exactly.
typical.
And
Very
then
typical. Yeah.
I remember just like going like, I don't just it was just awful meeting, and then everyone's yelling, and then that was pretty much. I was like, "This is it. It's not gonna be a good
Yeah.
meeting."
The overwhelm. Yeah. Oh, sorry to hear that, but it happens so much, I'm sure.
So sorry, but
Can't win them all, you know.
you can't, and sometimes you people are just upset. So I was just like, okay, well, I just resorted to like the meeting being bad the whole time, so that was it.
Yeah.
But Michelle,
Terrible.
have you ever
Yeah.
had to think on your feet?
Oh my God. That's the name of the game. Working in leasing or as a realtor, you're always like thinking fast on your feet. But I do remember, and this is very common, and I don't know in other cities, but big cities like Toronto, um, I'm sorry to say it, renters out there who are coming to Toronto, and cockroaches, pest control is a huge thing in the city. And I don't care if it's Toronto, it's New York, it's everywhere. Any large city where you have a lot of people coming in here, especially in older buildings, you're going to have some issues. And that may or may not be the landlord's fault. It could be an inherited problem that they're
Yeah.
trying to control. I just have to set that up and just say that, like it's a common problem. Okay.
Yes.
Having
Very
pests.
common.
That being said, thinking fast on your feet. So when you're managing many, many buildings like I did before, 25 plus properties, over 1,100 units, of course you're going to run into some pest control problems, even on showings. So I remember this one time, there's actually been many times, but there was a time where I was showing a unit in an older, cute building. And unexpectedly, a little friend decided to scoot its way, run across the kitchen counter.
My
And it
God.
was a couple I was showing it to, and of course the girlfriend freaked out, very upset. Understandable, I get it. No one wants to be on a showing and then you see a
Yeah,
cockroach.
exactly.
But I'm sorry, shit happens. Excuse my language. You can bleep that out, but it does happen. Okay. Um, but one thing I was like thinking fast on my feet, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to ruin the showing. Like, how can I still get them back? Right. And just through, natural persuasion and reassurance, and because like when you work for a large company, they're mandated to take care of pest control problems, which I knew our company did. It's something that can happen, but as long as the company's taking preventative measures and doing all the things and covering the costs and all of that. So through my reassurance, even though she saw a massive cockroach, I still ended up renting the unit.
Mm, bravo.
Just through a little bit of, honest persuasion. Thank you, thank you. But another time, I'll tell you, these are all cockroach stories. I'm really sorry, grossing you guys out, but this is the reality, right? Another showing
The
where I
truth.
opened the
This is the
unit.
truth.
This is the truth, and I don't want to hide it. And I think people need to be aware, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, like
For sure.
things to look out for, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny with cockroaches. I have a friend who says, when you turn the lights on, the cockroaches are almost like they
Yeah.
shoot up against the wall. They're like the cops are here, right? And that's how it was. I turned on the light and I'm walking in and I see him in the middle of the living room. like, oh gosh. But my clients or the prospective tenants didn't see it. And I'm trying to show them it's beautiful unit. Don't get me wrong, brand new reno. But again, sometimes these things happen.
Yeah.
And I'm twirling, I'm walking around, pointing over here and stepping on the roach over here and doing a twirl and a spin. And I'm like, come over
Little
here, let's go
dance.
look at the bathroom. Huh?
It's like a little
A little
dance.
dance. Yeah, a little dance, right? And then next thing you know, you're messaging, hey, pest control, we need to get this unit treated. But these are some of the truths. Um, so yeah, thinking fast on your feet, like you're not just showing the unit and selling properties and trying to convince, you're scanning for everything, like what can potentially go wrong. Is there a leak in the ceiling? So my job is constantly thinking fast on the feet, whether it's something you notice or something that a prospective tenant is questioning you about and you're caught off guard. 100%. But I have a question for you. Not a question, but do you remember, not sorry to bring up cockroach story again, but do you remember a resident at one of the properties who, I think he gathered cockroaches with his vacuum, sucked them up. I don't know how many he had and why it was not reported. That's a whole other story. But he put them in a garbage bag and then threw them at management. What happened there? He like bombed us with cockroach. These are the things, guys. These
They
are the
actually
things
had
that
a video of him just
really
just imagine like the little burglar like carrying the bag and just like drops it
like
and
a
like
black garbage bag.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a white one, like those kitchen
Oh,
ones.
is it a white one?
Looks
Okay.
down and just like
Oh,
looks around and like walks away, like kind of like
right.
howly.
Oh my
Yeah, I remember that.
gosh. I heard it was a ton.
Yeah,
And
it was
what's
really
even
bad.
more funny,
It was
I don't
like
even know why he would do
on the
that.
door. I forgot
Yeah.
exactly what the reason was that he did that, but yeah.
But yeah,
Cool.
not cool. Not cool at all. Sitara,
Yes.
what's the worst? And these are all things that we've been talking about, worst situations, da, 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 but what is actually the worst encounter that you recall that you've encountered
So I feel
at a
like
property or on the job or whatever?
for me, I can deal with like people yelling at me, but I am so scared of rats. Like I
Oh,
terrified of rats. Like
really?
they scare me. The tail. I don't know. I mean, like I see people with pets. I don't. Those don't bother me as much as the ones are like rogue in the garbage. But I
Oh,
just
yeah.
remember
Like
this
a
one
wild rat.
time at the property. We kept getting complaints of the garbage not being picked up. So I was like, okay, drove out there, go take a look and see what's going on. Why is something
Yeah.
blocking the bins? What's the problem? I opened the bags and there's actually like debris in there. So I don't know if it's construction material or whatever. There's just bags that the garbage people cannot actually pick up physically. And
Hmm.
then the biggest, and I mean like the fattest, the chunkiest rat I've ever seen
The,
in my life pops
the
out of one of
chunker.
the bags. And I
Yeah.
am on the phone talking to my team. Like, I'm pretty sure it was my manager at that time. I was like, yeah, the bags are not being picked up. And I'm like
Oh,
screaming my lungs out because this thing just like pops out of the bag. And this thing was so gigantic that when it ran
oh my
off,
gosh.
it waddled off because it was so fat. It didn't even run. It was so
Sounds
fat
like
that
my
it just,
cat.
yeah, it just like
Yeah.
belly side to side,
Yeah.
slowly, I mean, slowly
Yeah.
strolls away. And I was just
He had a full
like
belly.
full on like heart palpitations. I was like, I'm
Oh,
gonna have a heart attack at like 20
so
something, like so scared. And from then on, I've always learned to be a little bit more cautious around garbage
of
bags and stuff
course.
because
Yeah.
you don't know what fat rat is gonna pop out and give you a heart attack and then
Yeah.
slowly roll off into the sunset. Like
That's so
disgusting.
funny. You're honestly, I'd rather have a fat rat scream at me than a tenant any day.
I would pick the tenant.
I'll take the rat over an irate person
I will
any
take
day.
the I will take the irate person over the rat, please.
No. That is too funny. Closing question for you. What's the nicest tenant you've ever had, Tara? Any great tenants or
Yeah,
vendors even that you've had the pleasure of working with?
I've had like honestly for all the bad stuff that's happened, there's been times that there's been just really, really nice tenants. And I've had tenants that even dropped off, came to our office. And I mean, this was not the head office, it was like the sister office further out into the city, and dropped off like chocolates and candies for the team. It was really nice. Like, honestly, there's quite a
So
bit of
sweet.
really nice tenants.
Yeah,
So as long as they
I
like you,
agree.
I guess, and you don't have a fat rat
Yeah.
in
And you're
your
not a fat
garbage.
rat?
What about you, Michelle? Did you
Uh,
have any nice tenants?
I've had so many great tenants. One that comes to mind, though, she worked for a French uh, cosmetic company, and I remember I helped her and her roommate get a pretty sweet apartment,
Oh, nice.
and I got a whole sample pack of stuff from Paris, like shampoos and things like this, and like lotions and potions, and I thought that was really sweet because she worked for the company too. So
Oh,
I'll
that's
always
nice.
remember that. Yeah, but you're always getting it's more, it's not even gifts, it's more just the appreciation,
For
which
sure. Yeah,
unfortunately sometimes in this industry it is a thankless job, especially for property managers out there. So just a simple thank you and appreciation, like you know, it goes a long way.
totally.
So yeah, I've met a ton of people like that, and I've met a ton of not so grateful people, but you know, that's the world. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Now, all jokes aside, if you are going through some kind of situation with your landlord or maybe your tenant, always consult with a rental expert or licensed professional in your local area.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. And as always, if you have any questions or need advice with renting your property or just finding out a place, you can reach out to Michelle and she can recommend a leasing specialist in your area. And for any marketing, social media, home staging, you can contact me. Also, we have important resources and contacts linked up in the show notes below. And join us for our next podcast where we'll share valuable tips and practices to improve your experience as a landlord or renter. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional legal advice. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the management. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes. Please consult a licensed professional.